Hi everybody, welcome to the Off Market with Adam Stern. I'm Adam Stern, CEO of Strata SFR. We've got a great guest set up for today. His name is AJ Klink with Capstone Real Estate. They're a multifamily commercial firm here in Charlotte, which is where Strata is headquartered. Wanted to have a traditional multifamily broker on because I wanted to talk about the process of marketing projects on market versus off market. As most people know by now, Strata SFR are off-market specialists, and our entire process from beginning to end includes taking a property and making a market for it in the off-market. And I wanted to talk to AJ about his process of taking a multifamily project, listing it, and doing the traditional marketing thing that regular multifamily brokers do in exposing it to an audience via a process that ultimately results in a sale at the end, and how that differs from what Strata does in terms of our process in marketing our properties and opportunities in an off-market way. AJ, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
So part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is to talk about all the things a traditional broker does in terms of taking listings and projects and marketing them on market, right? Because at Strata, we do our entire business off market, and we have a very specific process that we go through in not only finding projects, but marketing a project in an off market way. And I wanted to kind of get the other side of the fence here. So to start off with, Capstone Real Estate and Catalyst Capital. You want to give us kind of an overview of what you guys do and what your position is with the firm?
Sure, yeah. Thanks again for having me on, Adam. Here in Charlotte, moved from Michigan in 2006, got into real estate pretty soon after in the heart of the recession. Found my way into multifamily industry, ultimately started and grew a apartment brokerage firm called Capstone Apartment Partners. We were originally based here in Charlotte. Now we've grown across the country. We have 14 offices, about 100 employees, and we focus predominantly on multifamily apartment buildings. So your traditional garden style buildings, mid-rise buildings, surface parked and with parking decks. This year will close about $3.5 billion. So that makes us the largest privately owned in the country. And our business has always been predicated on the representation, typically, I'd say 97% of the time, representation of sellers, and then marketing their assets to our database of buyers. And to your point, we would call it probably more on market than anything. We don't list the properties on an MLS or on a CoStar or a LoopNet, but we have a database that we've built of buyers that we distribute those to via email. So it's pretty obvious what's on the market and what's not. And so that's the brokerage business. I'm not active as a broker any longer. Active in ownership and on the board, and have continued in real estate. Started developing a company called Catalyst Capital Partners. We develop build to rent, worked with you on some stuff, and also just your traditional apartment, garden style, surface parked apartment community across the Carolinas.
You would consider yourself to be what most people would understand a broker to be. In other words, your commitment to your clients, to our sellers, is taking their projects, putting them in the best light possible, packaging them up, and then marketing them to a broad audience of your buyers. It's not on a marketplace like the MLS or CoStar or LoopNet, but you have a marketplace you created that contains your buyers, and your job is essentially to send these projects out to the widest swath of potential buyers to get the most eyeballs on it as possible. And in doing that, it's really an on-market strategy. Is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear, Lee, how we look at it. If you're in that email database that receives our opportunities, our listings, the property's on the market, right? There's no secret about it.
So your process, take me through it. So you get a listing and you got this big database of buyers. You put together some kind of deck or some kind of offer memorandum, and then everyone gets it in your database. There's no choosing what buyers get it. There's no masterminding behind it. It's, you got an opportunity, you're in the Capstone database, here's the opportunity, first come, first serve. Anything more you could tell us about that process and how it feels from the buyer perspective when they see an opportunity from Capstone?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a quite extensive database now of all the investors we've compiled, all the owners of these communities over the last 14 years,
Mhm.
all of our markets. Currently, we don't segment the email lists, meaning if you're in Colorado working with our office there and you only want to look at Colorado deals, for
Right.
better or worse, you're getting the deals in North Carolina that we put out.
Mhm.
Which is a flaw with our system, frankly, but something that we're improving and should be finished by the end of January,
Yep.
as far as giving folks an opportunity to sort of re-register based on their preferences.
Yep.
But yeah, typically, if I'm on the investor side, I receive the email. It says new listing or new offering from Capstone. It's got an
Mhm.
email kind of overview. You click through, make your way to our website. You sign the confidentiality agreement electronically. You
Mhm.
download the marketing package. You download the financials, the rent roll. There's a call for offer date. So your offers are all due by a certain date. There's
Mhm.
scheduled property tours dates. So you'll have a few select days to tour the property. And then you'll submit your offer at the offer due date, and
Mhm.
you'll be one of a handful, or
Yeah.
many, depending on how much interest the deal's getting.
The way that Strata looks at it is, when we make a market of buyers for an off-market property, our buyer base is really our stock and trade. So like when we get a project, and the way our process differs a little bit from yours is, first of all, we don't go out there and just take any listing we can get. We have a very specific target of what kind of projects fit the buyer base that we built, which is, buyers that buy built for rent projects and SFR portfolios. Knowing our buyer base really well allows us to pick and choose what projects we go after and ultimately take on as projects that we want to put on a disposition process for. I think where our process differs a little bit is before we show it to anybody, what we do is we identify the buyers in our database that we know are going to be interested in the project, and we call them and we contact them. We talk about the project to build what we call a buyer pool. And once we have the buyer pool, and the buyer pool is at least 3, sometimes we go as many as 5, we pick and choose the buyers that are in our pool, and we make sure that the buyers understand that they're being included in the pool because we believe, and they're saying they could be aggressive on the price versus what we're asking for, and that they'll be able to compete for the portfolio. That way, at the end of the process, we're like, great, we got our buyer base, we got our buyer pool. We're now cutting it off, which means every buyer in the pool that earns a position now has an increased chance of winning the deal, which makes our buyers really happy and makes sure they're really highly engaged with us so that when we call them, they pick up our call and they're responsive. The end result, I don't know if it's any better or worse than what you guys get, but usually what we get is at least 2 asking price offers, and then we put it up for a round of highest and best, which to my mind kind of squeezes all the fat out of the deal. So even if we underprice it by any margin, market forces and people competing with each other to get the project won creates a situation where the market's generally going to get it to its highest and best price because of that competition. I guess kind of similar to what you guys are doing. You guys just aren't limiting your buyer pool. You're letting anyone that wants to see the project see it and pursue it. Meaning, a lot of people might end up spending time on it that don't ultimately end up winning the projects. And I guess, from my perspective, there's a lot of value to our buyers in the way we do it. I guess my question for you is, how do you kind of mitigate the time cost that your buyers spend on your projects, being that they don't know how many other buyers they're competing with? Part of the reason why I like our process is I can tell our buyers, you're competing against 3 or 4 other buyers, and your chances of winning this are, if there's, 3 buyers in the pool, 33%. You're up against 2 other buyers.
Right. Yeah, it's to be a buyer right now has got to be a little bit frustrating and annoying, just simply from a standpoint of how many investors are looking for the same type of investment right now. I can see how your process is one that would encourage buyers, those you've hand selected and are, proven and trustworthy and capable, who are real. How it makes them feel a little bit more appreciated, and thus makes them a little bit more apt to pick up your call and take your projects seriously. Because it is true. We're no different, really. I mean, we are, and that's, I think, why we've grown so much. But we're not much different in our process from CBRE or Cushman or JLL or Newmark. It's get as many of the qualified, capable buyers as you can together, and then give them the opportunities. And if they want to spend their time on it, that's up to them, knowing full well that it might be a waste of time. And,
Yeah.
Frankly, most times it is.
I guess there's some comfort for your sellers in knowing that everyone that should have seen it or could have seen it did see it. And those are the buyers that just end up winning the deals at the end of the day, even if that means only the bigger firms end up always winning those deals, and the smaller firms that, might not be able to compete with the bigger firms, lest you guys actually hand select them, don't end up winning it at the end of the day,
Yeah, I mean, I think you could, if you wanted, you could go out and pick, kind of like you're doing, the 5 or 10 groups for any assignment, any project, and know that like these 10 groups, they're probably all going to offer, and they're probably all going to be within 5% of each other or 3%. Right. So then it just sort of boils it down to terms lots of times. But there's definitely something to be said for building relationships with specific buyers and specific sellers and really just focusing on that. There's a relationship piece there, and folks will take you more seriously if you spend more time with them and really try to help them specifically. So I do think that your strategy is a good one, and something right now that probably, it's just as hard to get the buyer's attention as the sellers, right? Like we need these buyers, you got to understand what they're looking at on their computer. They're getting 15, 20, 30 new opportunities a day. And they're getting, just think about that compounding over the course of 60 days. It's inundating. So the only way to really look at a deal is to have a whole team of analysts and acquisitions folks. But not everybody's capable of that, right?
Yeah. To my mind, it's like, if the brokerage can kind of pick up some of the mantle of deciding what are the best deals to show to particular buyers, so that every time you get a call from a hotshot broker that just knows exactly what you want to buy and what you should be spending your time on, then it's like, all right, we always know we're going to end up looking at these deals because they always hit the mark, more often than not. At the end of the day, it's just two ways of looking at doing the same job, which is taking an opportunity, taking a listing, exposing it to a buyer base, and getting a deal done. Now, you have Capstone Real Estate as your brokerage, and then you have Catalyst Capital, which is what, an investment arm to that brokerage?
It's totally unrelated. Capstone's investment sales brokerage, manufactured housing, apartments, land development, equity placement. I'm, like I said, not active on the brokerage side, but have a lot of good guys that could provide assistance. And then Catalyst is just a purely unrelated apartment development company focused on developing apartments. So, got, I think, 13 different projects in various phases, a handful of them under contract, handful of them built. Just doing what everybody else is doing, but trying to do it a little bit, more, I don't know, intentionally, creatively. Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of deals, so I think we have a decent eye for what's worth spending time on and what's not.
What do you like in the build for rent space right now? Like, from my perspective, a lot of people are building townhomes, high density townhome projects, and it almost seems like most of the build for rent deals we see now are townhome projects, which means single family detached projects are becoming more valuable. I don't think people are yet specializing in product for specific demographic groups, which I think is the way that the industry is going to go eventually. But in terms of like what you look for in good built for rent areas or projects, like is there a high level kind of checklist that things you look for to decide whether or not it's a good project or not so good project?
Yeah, it's a great question. We built the first purpose-built build for rent or institutional quality in Charlotte called the Wayford at Concord. It won Apartment Community of the Year last year, and it was the first of its kind, being just a rental townhome attached development. There's now a lot more behind it, right? In all of our markets. We are typically looking for more garden style suburban sites where we can get at least 10 acres. The density is pretty low, so we try to target over 150 units. Right. I think we could sometimes make a case to do a few less, but got to hit that certain economy of scale. It doesn't need to be a high income area. I think it needs to just generally have, I think if you can get to $1,800 to $2,100 3-bedroom rents and garden properties nearby, that's sort of our litmus test, then we should have the ingredients we need to be able to pencil a successful townhome rental deal. But yeah, I mean, as far as areas go, I think there's a market for it everywhere. I think the rental market's been so concentrated in your traditional apartment building and then your shadow single family rental space. These segments, the townhomes with amenities, fully amenitized management, that, and then the detached single family, I really feel like maybe it takes maybe 0.5% of the market now, but it's growing, right? I mean, it's growing, and it's not going to hit maybe where it needs to be for a while, because it's such a new product type. So I think there's a ton of runway.
Yeah, I don't think that we've even scratched the surface of what the single family rental community could be. I mean, everyone's just doing land grab right now. They're trying to build units and get those units filled. But, talking about active adult communities, active young adult communities, communities for burgeoning families. To my mind, I haven't seen anyone come out with a really defined strategy for nuancing the kind of product. It's all just, I want to buy land, I want to build units, I want to put, bodies in those units. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next, call it 3 to 5 years, we start seeing some really interesting business strategies, which include targeting a demographic and a specific need and providing a product for that need, which is not really happening just yet,
The thing that I'm most interested in seeing develop and innovate is the management efficiencies that can be created by the fact that these tenants are not going through common shared hallways. So using technology, you can allow prospective tenants to access their unit without ever having them meet a leasing agent, which I think is quite valuable. If we can start to cut down as operators one person off of the payroll team, that can really start to improve asset values. So there's a lot of technology innovations that are coming as well that I'm quite excited for.
Yep, totally agree with that. So if people want to get in contact with you, AJ, whether they have capital in place, they're looking for an entry into the Build Friends segment, or just general questions about multifamily in Charlotte, you want to let people know how to find you?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I'd just recommend looking me up on LinkedIn, AJ Klink on LinkedIn, or look up Capstone's website, capstonecompanies.com. We also have a podcast called Multifamily Method at Capstone, which is quite interesting. I'd love to help in any way that I can. I just like you, man, I've built what I've got from scratch, and just takes a lot of hard work and high integrity and doing what you say you're going to do, and and trying to not take yourself too seriously, and have some fun out there, right? I mean, there's a lot of big egos in this business. I think the goal is to not be in that category.
If you're not having fun, what's the point, right? If you like this podcast, please subscribe. We're on all the major podcast platforms. Thanks for watching.